Morning, all. All right, so wearing a hat that a subscriber sent me, and I figured, well, it's Red Wings, Grand Rapids, Griffins matches, right? So, yeah, and thank you. So, July 6th, 2021, and because of the Montreal Canadiens keeping their season alive last night, the season's not over yet. The earliest it'll end now is July 7th. So, again, we get closer and closer to next season and a shorter and shorter off season for the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Montreal Canadiens. But as Tampa Bay has proven, having a short off season didn't really hurt them this year, and having that squashed regular season and that extra schedule didn't hurt them either. So, yeah, pretty impressive what they've been able to do. So I don't normally report on assistant coaches being hired because there's a lot of them that get hired during the summer. There's a lot of them that get fired during the summer, and it's a lot. So today I'm making an exception because it's Seattle. Seattle's announced their first ever assistant coaches. Jay Leach, Paul McFarland. I do remember Jay Leach having a short-ish career. I believe he played 70 games in the NHL. But yeah, so it's nice to see Seattle's hiring their assistant coaches, and it is a chance for a couple of guys who have been waiting for their opportunity to show what they can do, for the Seattle Kraken. So Seattle is continually building. They started with, of course, bringing in Francis to run the thing, and they've been scouting for a year, and now here we are on the verge of them having a team, and they're putting together a whole staff. It's going to be fun to watch this take place and see what happens with them this year, right? Minnesota Wild have re-signed Bukestad for 1 year. Nick Bukestad signing for $900,000. Perfectly fine contract. And so, yeah, Bukestad should be sticking around with Minnesota. I'm only saying should just in case maybe they don't protect him and maybe Seattle takes him, but should be sticking around for another year with Minnesota. Because I don't think Bukestad's going to be the best player available if he was available from Minnesota. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens with them as well. An update on yesterday's news of the tragic passing of Matiss Kivlenieks, in that the cause of death, which was originally thought to be head trauma from him hitting the concrete, instead was a chest blast trauma instead. And in the panic of everything and with everything that's going on, it would be easy to mix that up and not know. And, yeah, so that's the update on that. And again, I've honestly been alarmed at people saying, well, he wasn't going to make it to the NHL anyways. I've been pulling those comments. Also, the whole comment about whether or not fireworks are safe and no, this is not the time. This is not the time for that. The guy's passed. Just, if we want to discuss safety, not fine, okay, but not in the scope of somebody who's just passed on. And we don't know all the circumstances either, so it doesn't sit well with me. So, again, my thoughts with the friends and family of Matiss as this story continues to unfold. From last night's game with Montreal and Tampa, there was one news item which may slip through. Romanov, with a goal last night, becomes the youngest defenseman in Montreal Canadiens history to score a goal in the Stanley Cup final. So that's good. And, watching Romanov last night, I kept thinking, why wasn't he in the... I understand Gustafsson was supposed to be a power play specialist, but Romanov got a goal. Gustafsson hasn't been getting those. His puck hit the net. Weber's haven't been hitting the net, but that's a whole other discussion too. But yeah, so good on Romanov for showing that he's worth putting in the lineup. I hope they keep him in the lineup too. Interesting news with the Oilers. So we're still waiting on the Duncan Keith trade to the Oilers, right? But the Oilers are waiting reportedly because, and this makes a lot of sense. So you're going to go out and get Duncan Keith, right? And Edmonton's probably sitting down with Chicago going, all right, we'll give you this and this for Duncan Keith. And Chicago's like, fine. But Seattle's got, their expansion plans coming up. So for the Oilers, their plan is to protect Darnell Nurse, Ethan Bear, and likely Adam Larson, who they're working on an extension with. Well, why would you give up assets to pick up Duncan Keith, who Seattle could then take for nothing if he's going to be exposed in the expansion draft? You're not going to want to protect Duncan Keith. So Duncan Keith would stay out there. Now, the interesting thing is this. If Chicago doesn't protect Keith, let's just say Chicago does, just for a second, let's just say they don't, and Seattle takes him and trades him to Edmonton. That would be interesting, because then that would undo the whole trade. I know Keith's going to get protected by Chicago. It may very well be that Chicago wanted to trade him out so they could protect someone else, but they'll protect him, and then they'll get some assets back in return. News yesterday, which I thought was mildly interesting. I'll throw this in here. Stephen Kampfer signing with the KHL. Kampfer's been one of those defensemen that's just felt like he's on the verge of maybe getting a full-time NHL job, and then it just doesn't quite work out. Whether it's been due to injury or just due to not being what the team's envisioning a top six defenseman to be, and for whatever reasons those are, right? So Kampfer is signed in the KHL. I wish him the best. I could see him doing very well in the KHL and ending up coming back over to the NHL. And maybe at some point he can hit his stride and get a full-time job. And it's depth off the Boston blue line, which it feels like every offseason there's depth going off the blue line. You have to wonder if maybe they might be picking somebody up this year during the offseason themselves in order to make up for some of the losses they've had on the blue line. Because I haven't heard anything about Riley re-signing either, so we'll see. Although we're already into crazy time where there's some crazy rumors out there, and I see them and I go, wow, how can anybody on planet Earth actually believe that rumor? How in the world can anybody believe for a moment that's how? I'm bewildered. So last night, Ron MacLean interviews Gary Bettman. Now, normally that interview is a lot longer than the one they had last night. So the one they had last night was shorter. It was only one segment, which I was honestly kind of surprised by. Because if you want to have an in-depth interview, it has to go more than 5 minutes. It just has to. Gary Bettman is very, very good, or Barry Getman. Alter ego. Barry Getman puts on a pair of sunglasses. I'm not Gary Bettman, I'm Barry Getman. So, Gary Bettman, last night, he's very good at the doublespeak. He's very good at being diplomatic. He's very good at lawyer speak, right? So, for Ron MacLean to sit down and interview him, well, you want to get information of some sort of him. So, he talked to him a lot about the Olympics and what's holding up the agreement with the Olympics. The part that I found interesting was Bettman saying, well, the NHLPA has to work out that agreement with the Olympics, with the Olympic Committee, and there's all this talk about insurance, which makes sense. The NHL doesn't want to send players over to China and have the insurance paid for by themselves, and then end up with some major issues coming out of that, whatever that is, right? So I thought that was interesting, but then immediately I noticed on the internet people were mad about the fact that he defended the officials to Ron MacLean. The NHL has fined coaches and general managers for speaking poorly of officiating. Gary Bettman can't sit there on nationwide or North American-wide TV and start saying the officiating's not good enough. It opens a can of worms that the NHL can't open. If Gary Bettman legit believes that the officiating's not good enough, he can't say that on national TV. He can't say that to Ron MacLean knowing how many people are watching. He just can't. The NHL has always been a look what they do, don't listen to what they say kind of thing. So when there's something controversial that takes place, dating all the way back to Brett Hull's skate in the crease, the NHL will say whatever at the time, but watch for changes after. And the skate in the crease is a good example. That rule was publicly changed after. The Dallas Stars say that it was changed before that goal went in, and that there was a note sent out to all NHL teams. The Buffalo Sabres dispute that. So the NHL afterwards cleared up any kind of confusion that may have been out there, and that skate in the crease rule was gone, right? The 5-minute major with San Jose and Vegas, that series, that was changed after. There's no way Gary Bettman's going to come out publicly and say anything negative about officiating, because it's going to be splashed everywhere, and then every coach is absolutely justified in saying, well, look, even the boss thinks they do a crap job, so now I can say whatever, and you can't find me for it. And then it becomes players, everybody all the time can complain about refs. And so the other thing, too, was that, the question was, well, why wasn't he asked about the Blackhawks scandal? The Blackhawks scandal is still unfolding. He addressed that in the State of the Union, or State of the NHL, I guess, at the start of the Stanley Cup, right? And I don't think there's any chance he's going to add more information. I don't think there's any chance that Ron MacLean could have said, so what kind of issues could happen if these accusations are proven true. What's going to happen to Chicago? He's not going to get into that kind of speculation. And Ron MacLean in the past has taken a very confrontational stance with Gary. He doesn't get more information out of Gary when he's like that. I know people like it when he's like that. It doesn't get more information out of Gary. If anything, it just ticks him off and probably makes him think, well, I'm not doing this again. So I understand that people thought it was kind of too friendly and too jovial, but I thought it was interesting hearing about the Olympics, and I didn't expect him to talk about officiating. I didn't expect him to talk about the Blackhawks thing either. It's just, this is, again, it's a shorter interview than normal, and there's just so much to be discussed, and I understand the Olympics feel like they're a long way off. They're only 7 months away. So when he asked Gary Bettman, well, what's the drop-dead date? And he's like, yeah, it was in May. He's not lying. They wanted to have the whole Olympics thing figured out by the end of May because they have to have the scheduling done for next year so that teams can sell tickets and have their schedule announced. They plan to announce the schedule July 23rd. They've got a Board of Governors meeting coming up on the 14th. That's just for updates. So he's not even saying we have to have the answer 100% by then or else we're done. He wouldn't even say that last night. So that tells me he's giving the players all the leeway in the world to figure out how to make this work logistically. It's not easy. Dealing with the IOC is not easy. And as much as people get mad about the NHL and there's all these talks about, oh, this is corrupt and that's corrupt, the IOC is, wow. The IOC and FIFA, it's like they have a competition over, you think you're corrupt, boy, I tell you. But hey, FIFA will make movies telling you how great their presidents are. So bizarre. But anyways, yeah, that's a whole other thing right there. I also want to throw in here, and I mentioned this on Twitter last night. I am amazed during this playoffs. It feels like it's more amplified. Every single goaltender that loses a game sucks. All of them. They suck. Every single game I see. Well, he sucked tonight. All of them, every goalie in the league sucks. I have no idea why they make more than $50 a year. Because according to fans, every goalie sucks. And so don't be surprised when the next video I do that isn't entirely serious is along the lines of why every goaltender in the NHL sucks. So, yeah. There you go. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. It means a lot. I'm glad we have a Game 5 tomorrow. I'm glad it wasn't a sweep. I'm glad that's by the wayside. You know what it reminds me of is, I want to say it was the New Jersey Devils back in 2012 that the Kings had them down 3-0, and then the Devils won the next two games. This final to me kind of feels like that, where yes, Montreal's, just putting off the inevitable, but it's nice to see some fight back. That's what it reminds me of, and I'm just saying that off the top of my head. I'm pretty sure the Kings were on the verge of a sweep, and then the Devils won. I think it was their next two. I don't think it was the Rangers series that went that way. I think it was the Devils one. And yeah, and then eventually the Kings won it. And by that point, you were kind of going, can Brodeur win another one? No, we can't. All right, well, we can't have nice things. So, and again, that was a series where I didn't really care one way or the other. But man, when New Jersey looked like they were going to come back, I was like, what? That would be interesting. But anyways, there you go. Thank you guys again. Hit like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. And I will talk to you again soon.